Welcome back to Unfinished Business. This is the podcast where we sit down with business owners who are building companies in real time, navigating growth, uncertainty, responsibility, and the work that's never quite finished. And today's guest is someone who works with businesses who don't think about him until they desperately need him. Matt Kinsey is the founder of IT Fusion, a technology company focused on business management systems, cybersecurity, risk management, and business continuity solutions that allow companies to resume operations in as little as 1 hour after a catastrophic event. So, Matt, I can't wait to get into this discussion, but welcome to Unfinished Business.
Glad to be here, Kimberly.
Yeah. In your world, I'm sure there's a lot of unfinished business.
Everything changes so quickly. You can't, there's nothing, there's never anything finished because
Yeah.
it's good today and the world changes, 4 hours later.
Yep, absolutely. Well, take me all the way back to the beginning, before IT Fusion even existed. What were you doing professionally before you built this company?
So my last corporate position, I was what's known as an IT architect.
I've never heard that term. Tell
It's
me
a,
what that means.
it's a high level technical position. It's a director level equivalent. I worked at Office Depot's corporate headquarters in Delray Beach at the time. They've since moved back to Boca and gotten bought. So that's almost 19 years ago now. I was responsible for architecting, creating the technical infrastructure for projects for Office Depot. So that's what I was working on, was trying to make sure that we got um, that we had the infrastructure in place to support the business needs of Office Depot at a high level. So I wasn't doing the day-to-day fixes of technology. I was planning, doing strategic planning, operational planning on a daily basis.
Yeah. That in and of itself sounds like a business, like almost an entrepreneur, because you were relying on team, but you were kind of the strategist. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I really did not have any direct authority over anyone.
Yeah.
Everybody I was working with, they had their own direct reports that they had to work with and answer to. So there was a lot of negotiation, a lot of massaging of territorial issues, even within one company. Well, that's our area. Why are you telling us what to do? And I'm like,
Wow.
well, you just tried to tell me which system to get. That's not the way we work. So, just a lot of those really psychological and sociological issues within a company.
Yeah. So really fighting amongst, control, like inside the
I
business,
want to
would that
say
be a good way?
it's just, but it's definitely a control issue.
Yeah.
It's the tug of war. So not really a fighting in terms of, anger or vitriol. It's just like, this is my domain
Yeah.
and my position cross domains. And so getting cross-functional teams to work together sometimes can be a bit of a challenge, especially when there's a lack of clarity from the executive team about what their expectations are.
Yeah. So I can imagine that made it very difficult to be nimble at times and get your work, move your work along.
Yeah, large companies, nimble is not usually a word that's associated with a lot of large companies. As companies get larger, they tend to become less nimble, and there's good reasons for that. And we actually put in processes to slow things down because things were happening too quickly and it was causing bad decisions to be made. So that was one of the things that I helped put in, was a process of how we introduced new technology and how we evaluated new technology and when it was supposed to be introduced. So I was talking to the consultants of the world, the Gartners of the world, and on a regular basis saying, okay, when's the right time for a company like ours to look at this technology? Because Office Depot was not a leading edge technology company. We wanted mainstream technology that was proven, unless we saw this huge business opportunity to move a little further into the not fully tested software.
Yeah. So within that role, what was the problem that you kept seeing that made you think, maybe I've gained experience and I can do this, on my own?
Well, I mean, the process we put in place with the technology introduction and service plans and treating IT as a business within the business, um, That saved Office Depot hundreds of millions, billions of dollars, both in direct costs and in cost avoidance. So we measured both of those. So if we were able to put something in without adding something new, using our existing infrastructure, we use that as a cost avoidance.
Yes.
Or, hey, we actually reduced costs. So both of those came about. One of the projects was just, moving from satellite to DSL in our stores. There was a huge cost savings. And anytime you multiply something by 1,000, even if it's a
Huge.
small dollar, when they got over 1,000 stores, so even just a small dollar amount, you know, oh, we're going to save $10,000 a store. Okay, whoop-de, oh, wait a second. 10,000 times 1,000, that's $10 million.
Right.
It adds up very quickly. And I'm just throwing some numbers out as examples.
Yeah.
So I saw that, and my thought in 2007 was that I could bring that to other companies. And it started off well. And then in 2008, the market crashed and companies weren't interested, at least the ones I was talking to, weren't interested in things that had long payback times.
Yeah.
They were interested in much shorter payback times. And I don't think in many industries that's changed.
Mhm.
In the US in particular, we're so driven by quarterly results. Japan, there are companies that create 100-year plans in Japan. We
Yeah.
don't do that here. A 3-year plan is a stretch for many companies.
Yes. Agreed. Agreed. So that being said, you were in a great position though, having saved and created these tremendous results. It's like you had immediate case studies in
Yeah,
your
I
disposal.
was, and I don't want to take all the credit. I was part of a team that did that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, and I was a team member, and I had a VP who was leading the charge on this, but I learned so much, and we had case studies of things we had done. Um, and and I was also very sure. I mean, I my first year I turned down a 6-figure deal because I knew that the guy wasn't actually going to implement it and get any money out of it. And I told him that. He threw me out of his office, but then he referred me 3 other people. So
Wow.
he was like, he's like, I can't stand the guy, but you'll love him. That's what he told one
Wow.
guy. The first guy who called me, I'm like, where'd you hear my name? He's like, oh, this guy called me. I'm like, what? That guy called you? He threw me out of his office. He goes, oh, yeah, you told me the whole story. And he goes, did you really tell him he wasn't tough enough to do this? I said, yeah. He goes, yeah, you're right.
That's wild.
Well, I'm creating a process. We're talking about a process that's going to slow things down, and that he's going to have to hold firm that, like, yes, I know this is going to slow things down to speed things up later. And while I'm in the meeting, everyone keeps coming in and interrupting him, which is not a good sign. And then every time they push back on a decision he made, he was giving in. He's not pushing back. And there were some of them. To be fair, some of them came in, and I was like, yeah, he needs to agree with her, when she walked in. Like, what she said is absolutely right. He needs to agree with her, and he did. But there were others I'm like, man, he needs to push back on that. And he didn't. He's going to spend, 6 figures with me, and he's not going to get any return. And that's not worth my reputation.
Yeah. Wow, Matt. I mean, that's a tremendous, especially in the early days when you're launching a business. That's a tremendous sign of integrity on your part. But also in the world that you're in, I can only imagine.
I had money still in the bank then, so I would love to say 100% I would have done the same thing if my bank account had been near zero. And I think I would have. But sometimes I question that, like, you look at a bank account, you're like, wait a second, it might be okay, but no, it really wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah. That is wonderful to hear. And I think that's advice that's across the board. I think sometimes when we've all had those experiences in business where our gut said, yeah, this is not a good move. This is not going to end well. And at least in my experience, when those things have happened, it's been that has been the nightmare type of situation where nobody's happy, and the threat of a relationship loss, which, to your point, when you're building your business, especially in the early stage, reputation is really what you have.
Absolutely. That's all you got.
Yeah. So take me back kind of to the early years. In the beginning, you're wearing all the hats, trying to do everything for yourself. You were at that point a technician, a salesperson, a marketer, and an accountant. How were you finding your first clients? Like, what was really kind of that early stage of paving the way to growth?
It was networking without a doubt. So I joined BNI my first year in business, and that's grown my business, and it's still a very significant portion of my business comes directly from referrals. I wasn't when I started, but I've become a very good networker, and I work the relationships. in my space, it's a recurring revenue model. So when we get clients, we tend to keep them. And one of the consultants in my space said, look, if you've got less than 90% annual retention on your clients, you need to get out of the business because you're failing because it's such a high loyalty business.
So what did you do differently in the beginning to ensure that they stay with you?
I think so I remember a quote Robin Robbins, who's a marketing person, gave. She goes, when someone signs with you, the only thing they know about your business is how good you are at marketing and sales. That's all they know. And so then you have to have for us, we have a very consistent onboarding process that we communicate up front. And then what you're starting to do is create small wins. And it's like, okay, this is what we're going to get done this week. All right. And here's what we need from you. And if we don't get it, it'll delay this. And then, the following Monday, you're like, okay, here's what we got done. And, we didn't get this response from you until Friday at 3 o'clock. So that's going to push this back a little bit, but we're going to make up for it here. Not blaming, just the actual, here's the status. And then they're like, okay, so he's communicating, he's setting expectations, he's being clear in what we need from him, he's keeping the commitments he's made as much as he's able to. So that's one part of it, is starting to establish those initial checkpoints where you're reinforcing the good decision that they made.
Mhm.
The
Mhm.
second thing is I'm in a fear-based business. Now I'm not a fear-based person. I'm an abundance-based person, but a lot of IT is driven by fear of loss,
Yeah.
and IT and compliance, cybersecurity, it's fear of loss. So I put things in to help alleviate that. And one of those is complete transparency. We got a law firm probably about 14 years ago, or 12, 14 years ago, somewhere around there. But his previous IT person had failed to do something, and there was an incident and didn't own it. And that's why I got my opportunity in there. If the guy had just said, yeah, Mr. Managing Partner, I messed up. I'm sorry. And here's what we're going to do to fix it, he would have kept the client.
Wow.
Okay, but he didn't. And so I came in, and so we've been working with him, I don't know, about 3 months, and we made a mistake. My team made a mistake. We found it at 2 AM, we corrected it by 5 AM. The client never saw it. He got a report the next morning,
I told them anyway.
and I told him, "Here's what
Yeah.
happened." And he called me and goes, "I didn't need to know that." I said, "I know you didn't need to know that. I needed you to know that."
Yeah.
And because especially because of the way he'd come in, to let him know, "Hey, we owned it, we took care of it. You never even saw it.
Yeah.
You were sleeping through it."
Yeah. Yeah.
But we took care of it. And this is the way we operate. So I think those are things that you do, letting people know you're going to make mistakes. It's gonna happen. You know, do you own it? Do you clean it up to the best of your ability? And sometimes those mistakes might cost you a client, but you still want to do the most effective thing you can to help that client out of that situation.
Yes. Yes. Don't burn the bridge.
Yeah, don't don't burn the bridge. Some I would say some bridges need to be burned. Okay, there are some, I mean, that's the other thing is I tell clients up front now, I didn't say it as boldly as I did when I started, but now I say we have a no asshole policy. And they look at me and I'm like, if you're an asshole, I'll fire you. If we're an asshole, I'll fire ourselves. And he's like, okay, got it. No one's ever been offended, and they generally laugh about it like you did. They're like, I
Yeah.
like that.
I do too. Like it's very genuine, you
Yeah.
know?
It's
Let's
like
let's treat people with respect.
we're never going to be the asshole. Okay. And if
Yeah.
you are, I'll give you one warning and then we're going to part ways because
Yeah.
I'm not going to let my team go through that. I don't need to go through that. And I think the other thing that establishes trust, and it's a really weird psychological thing, and part of it's in the sales process is, and they call it the flinch in sales, is when someone asks a price or when you present the price, if you don't appear confident, they pick it up instantly
Mhm.
and they're going, okay, he doesn't believe this. So I can negotiate this down or whatever because he doesn't believe it. So that's the other thing is you got to be confident in your pricing. You got to be confident in your services. And I was at a conference in January, and the guy who was speaking, he sold two $20 million businesses. And he goes, if you believe that there's no one else who can service this client than you can, he goes, that will make up for bad sales skills. That will make up for bad marketing skills because you'll close deals just on your belief in
Wow.
yourself. He goes, it's true. He goes, now you get good sales techniques, you'll close more. He goes, but you'll be able to close sales even with bad technique if you truly believe that what you're offering is the best
Yeah.
you can do for this client. And I've reflected on that a lot. And I'm like, do I demonstrate that? I think I do. I try to. I'm sure I don't always, but I try to. And when I've had doubt, I had a client, we did an assessment because we started with an assessment. And I told him I wouldn't even bid because his current IT company was doing a great job. He should stay with them. He goes, well, maybe you could save me money. I said, I don't care. You're going to go through 3 to 6 months of grief, learning each other, learning all of our systems. I said, and I cannot guarantee you I can do a better job. I can do as well as they're doing, but I can't guarantee you I'll do a better job. And he thanked me, and then he's referred me other people. He's not referring his current IT company. He's referring
Wow, that's
me,
interesting.
but he's still using his current IT company because I told him
Yeah.
I didn't even give him a price. I wouldn't even give him a price on it.
Yeah.
It's
Huh.
like, no, stay where you are. They're doing a great job.
Yeah. I like that. Okay, so let's shift a little bit about now. I want to ask a little bit more specifically because you kind of are alluding to this that you're very confident and it appears you have a 24-hour guarantee after a crisis. Tell us a little bit more about that. How you
Well,
came up with that idea and what it's done.
Well, I mean, we have technology that supports that. So, we're able to recover quickly with the tools that we have to get somebody back up and running in a virtual environment very quickly. So, like someone's running a server, we can get their server back up within usually 15-20 minutes if their server crashes or they lose power. We can get up in the cloud within usually 15 to 20 minutes so that they can begin to operate. No more than an hour's worth of data loss. Sometimes there's a problem in the backup, but we're never going to go back more than the night before. So that's technology that allows us to do that. But it also depends on the size of the company. Like if I'm dealing with a mid-market company, it's going to take longer. And we
Mhm.
communicate that up front. But most small businesses don't have that type of data. And also we all let people know there's things out of our control. Like, 90% of our customers use Microsoft Office for their email. If Microsoft goes down, I can't fix that.
Right. That's beyond your
I
control.
am just as captive to that as you are. But once it's back up, we can recover data because we're backing up their emails 3 times a day. So we can recover data if there's data loss. So it's all about defining from the customer, and any business continuity person will tell you to do that. It's like, what is your mission critical systems? Those come up first. And then what are your business critical? So we want to get our mission critical systems up as quickly as possible. Business critical, you wait until the mission critical stuff is
Yeah.
up. So marketing materials, I'm sorry, marketers, if you own a marketing company, it's mission critical for you, but it's business critical for us.
Yes.
Okay, if I don't have access to my brochures today and it's 2 days later, I can work around that. But if I don't have access to my billing system, if I don't have access to my delivery systems, I've got to get those up and running first.
Right. So what actually happens when a business doesn't have a continuity plan to a small business who really is just kind of developing infrastructure for them? Why is that important?
Well, 70% of companies that go through a data loss without a business continuity plan are out of business within a year. Unless you're a large company who owns lots of property like McDonald's, okay, because they own all the property under almost every single one of their franchises. So they own that property. So they've got huge assets in real estate. For most small companies, the most valuable piece of asset you have is the information that you have, the data that you have, the business processes that you've developed. Um, with some exceptions, but that is a huge asset. And when you lose that, if I shut down and I had my database of people, I could build something new. And I,
Yeah.
w- I would build a lot quicker than it took to build this
Right.
because I've got all those contacts, I've got all this knowledge, everything. And so I need to maintain that and protect that. So companies go out of business. We see it when 9/11 happened, something like 60% of those businesses that were independent businesses, not people who were renting space that were a larger company, but the independent business owners in the Twin Towers, like 60% of them went out of business completely.
They had no way to pull all of this information.
And that's why we back up stuff locally and into the cloud.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we make sure it's not writable. The other issue, it's not just the physical disasters, it's the ransomware. And the tactics have changed. Now they're trying to what we call exfiltrate data. So they're trying to get data out of your system. Because then if they just ransomware and you've got backups, you can recover. If they've got your data, now you've got a data breach and you've got reporting requirements and your data is out there. And so that's one way. The other thing they do is they go after the backups. Because if they can go after the backup and destroy the backup, then you've got to pay them to decrypt your data. So there's a lot out there. It's scary, but it's manageable.
What is the biggest misconception that you're finding about what people know or maybe think they know or think they have in place about IT protection?
I'm not a target. That is by far, oh, my business is too small. I'm not a target. They're going after Bank of America. They're going after Chase. They're going after Walmart. They're going after these big companies. Most data breaches are small companies because number one, the FBI is less likely to get involved. Oh, you lost $50,000. The FBI is like, okay, we'll add it to our file. And that's no disrespect to them. They don't have the resources to go after every single thing. So they add it to the file and we report incidents when we become aware of them. So that they can add it. And I got a call last year that one of the incidents we reported, ended up in an arrest because it got added into another and helped them piece it together. That's rare that I got a call, but I happen to know the guy. So he's like, yeah, 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 we got the guy. I was like, oh, great. But it wasn't just because of ours. It was, dozens of reports. And now all of a sudden they've got a big case rather than an individual person. The other thing is they know that most small businesses don't have the same doc. So I live in I live in a bedroom community, 30,000 people, and we've had a rash of people leaving their cars open and people walking by and pulling stuff out of their cars. Okay, and that's what the cyber criminals are doing. They're knocking on your electronic door and saying, "Is this open? Well, I can get in."
Oh my gosh.
And, "Oh, I can't get in, and I really don't care about this guy, so I can't get in. I'm gonna go to somebody else because I know I'll be able to get in."
Mhm.
But then the techniques can keep getting more sophisticated, and it's kind of like the nuclear proliferation back in the 50s and 60s, where the Soviet Union would build a bomb, and then we build it 2 more, and then they go build 3, and then we build 4, you know, because it was this arms race going on, and it's kind of the same thing in the cyber criminal space. It's an arms race. They keep getting better tools, so we have to get better tools. So they go get better tools to defeat the tools we just got better. And so it's a lot to keep up with.
Yeah, I bet. So let's break this down and simplify this for small business owners in particular that are listening. What, in plain English, what does IT Fusion actually do for me?
Look at it this way. We are your IT department. That's one way a lot of our customers look at it. So rather than hiring an IT person, you're hiring an IT department, an IT team with multiple people so that you can rely on them. Because a lot of our clients are under 50 users. Most of our clients are under 50 users. So that's one way we look at it. The other thing we're doing is we're managing risk and we're managing cyber risk and compliance risk. So just like you have a general liability policy, certain industries have errors and emissions or professional liability policies. If you've got vehicles, you've got an auto policy and you're shifting financial risk for something happening. Here you're shifting some operational risk so that you've got the operational expertise to manage that risk for your company. Because really what boards of directors and business owners are looking at when they're going to spend money is, can I improve customer service? Can I decrease costs by spending money? Can I improve my revenue or can I reduce my risk profile? So those are really the 4 things in big major buckets that they're spending on. And we're in that risk management space. We're not a cost savings move generally. We're managing risk and helping you be more secure. And a lot of my clients say I sleep better at night knowing IT Fusion is watching over our systems.
Yeah. So walk us through that process of someone getting started. You had mentioned earlier you start with kind of an audit. Where do you go from there to assess the right solution?
Yeah. So, I mean, the assessment's really easy. We do a 30-minute phone call and we ask some basic questions. Then we do the technical assessment. A week later, we get back on the Zoom call or in person and we go over what we found. And I'm not going to go over in detail. We're going to go over the major findings that are really concerning, that are fairly easily addressable, and that we can address. And then we're going to present, our action plan on how we're going to address those. So, I mean, it's a really simple process, but we're going to ask a lot of questions like what type of data do you have? What processes do you have in place? Do you have cyber insurance? If they have cyber insurance, we ask for a copy of the policy so we know what it would take to get a payout if there were an incident. Because that's one of the things we do is, if there is a breach, we want to make sure that the cyber insurance policy will pay what it's supposed to. And that comes down to proving that we're doing what the insurance company requires us to do.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. To be in compliance with your policy, you have to have certain protections in place. Otherwise, it's not covered. Yeah.
And it's spelled out because then they're going to say, oh, no, no, oh, okay, you said you had multi-factor on your email. Kimberly, your account, you turned it off on your account. So we're not going to cover
Mm,
little things like that. You made everybody else do it, but not you as a business owner because it was too much of a hassle.
yeah.
And we see things like that on a regular basis. And so we're going to monitor those and provide the evidence that we're doing that the legal term is what a reasonable business owner would be doing.
Matt, let's transition a little bit from the services that you provide to, running your own business, going from wearing all the hats, technician essentially, to CEO. At some point, every founder owner has to evolve to that. When did you realize that you couldn't just be the IT expert anymore, the go-to guy, and that you needed to start, developing your team in that same capacity?
Yeah, part of it was just the workload, but I think it was the pandemic where it really hit it because my wife was doing some bookkeeping, my son was working with me, and it was the three of us, and we experienced humongous growth during the pandemic, two and a half, almost three times growth.
Just naturally because there was a little more fear and skepticism, or
Yeah, the risk, the public awareness of the risk profile had definitely changed. The need for remote work had changed. So people were concerned, well, I've got everyone in my office, they're safe, but now they're at home.
yeah.
Now they're at home accessing my systems. How do I protect that? So those were the types of questions that we were getting and providing solutions for and getting a lot of referrals for. So that was a big part of it. But it was also just I was getting spread thin, and we're at that point again, we're right on the edge of needing to hire somebody, and we're like, okay, when's the right time? And because it's a chunky thing when you're hiring people. It's not this smooth thing like, oh, I need more software, so I buy more licenses based on the number of people that I'm adding to the system. That's a smooth transition. But now you're adding a significant expense to cover those additional costs.
So what are you finding? Where's your head in that process, that this real challenge that you're dealing with right now?
My head is it's like, okay, I want to see, we had tremendous growth last year. We typically have not had 2 years of humongous growth consecutively. We grew 40% last year, just under 40%. So where are we looking at this year? But we started off with two really good months. We're ahead. So then it's like, okay, that gives me some more. I look at our I look at our recurring revenue, which we have two major sources of recurring revenue. We have what we call monthly recurring revenue, which is a high margin stuff that's a lot of labor. Then we have other recurring revenue, which is like, Microsoft Office licenses. You don't make a lot of margin on those, but they don't have a lot of labor behind them. So we look at that and we're like, okay, are we meeting our monthly expenses with that? If we add a person, will we still be meeting? Because that's what some people call it a turning point. Some people call it a flashpoint. But I like to know that what I've got under contract will cover my expenses or really close to it, because that way I know I'm going to be profitable. So
Yes.
those are the types of things we look at. And then we're also looking at, can we automate some more stuff? So we just downloaded all of our tickets for the last 90 days. We ran them through, we did some analysis. And so we got some targets to create some automation that might relieve some of it, that might keep us from having to hire somebody. So all of these things go into it. But it really, when you finish all that analysis, it's like the first chapter of Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. You look
Mhm.
at it and you go, yeah, it's time. Or no, it's not time. And sometimes you're right and sometimes you're wrong, but you just got to go with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think those are very good words of wisdom. However, what you say as far as doing all of that analysis, again, kind of ownership still on you, what have you had to stop doing in order to focus your attention there?
And so, I mean, the biggest thing I've stopped doing is the day to day IT work. So I'm doing very little day to day IT work. I still get called in on an emergency. I was up till 4 a.m. this morning working on something last night just because of when it happened, what the issue was, who was available. I ended up working on it, but that's not a normal day for me. My normal day now is I'm networking, I'm talking to prospects, I'm taking existing clients out to lunch or meeting them at their office. and, furthering the relationship. I'm working on content for our website. So I'm really trying to focus more on the business development side right now rather than on the engineering side. We've got other people that we've got paths for. So we know that probably later this year we're gonna probably outsource our day-to-day accounting, just because it just the moving that into a cost center and then allowing the person who's doing that right now to turn into a revenue producing person, because she's a great compliance person, because she's got the right mindset for compliance. And a lot of bookkeepers and accountants have that mindset for compliance, but
Yeah,
they're just like, "Yeah, I checked the box."
exactly.
Okay, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Dotted the I.
This is not a criticism of them. This is they're really good at
It's
this.
no, it's their superpower. I'm married to one of those.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I can check the box. We're good. Nope,
Yeah,
it doesn't check the box. What are you gonna do to fix it? And they don't have to know how to fix it. They just need to know I can check the box or I can't. So now I can demonstrate that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
yeah.
And they're really good at that. They tend to be concrete thinkers. They tend to be on a disc personality. They tend to be a high CS is where I
Love
find
that
a
you
lot of
mentioned that. That's my favorite tool, favorite people analysis tool on the planet.
it brings me a lot. I'm a super high CD,
Uh-huh.
with a lot of I. The last guy did it. He said I had negative S because if it were possible, you would have negative S, because he goes, you didn't answer a single question with an F, not one. And I'm like, but I'm not. And I go, I'm a very caring person. He goes, oh, absolutely. And it has nothing to do with caring. I don't get fulfilled from supporting people like the way my daughter does.
Yes.
I get fulfilled from getting things done.
Yes. Yes. Isn't it so interesting when you break down, when you simplify
Yeah.
people, it really kind of helps you put people in the right seats, I think.
Eh,
Knowing what they're, going to be like what their proclivity is.
It's probably the best sales tool that I've got, because I've learned quickly
Absolutely.
you know, how to identify where they're operating. Not that may not be where they are at home. Okay. Because there's a lot of people who've got a high S, but at work you would never know it,
Yes.
because S isn't rewarded in the workplace.
Yes.
So it's like, here's how they're operating, and then you move your sales presentation, you work the wheel.
Yeah.
We call it working the wheel. And I remember doing a training on that. And it's made such a difference. I'm like, okay, yep, this is a details guy. All right.
Yes.
Oh, this guy, he just wants me to give him the high levels and shut up and get out of his office. Well, when I was at Office Depot, we had these blocks. They were red, blue, yellow, and green. It was
Huh?
similar to disc, and they had sayings on the back. And I still remember the red. It said, be brief, be bright, be gone.
Same. I think I went through that same training. Yeah. I got certified in disc because I
Yeah.
was so fascinated in it.
People would put it on their, they were like these foam Lego blocks. They would put them
Yes.
on their disc on their desk in their order, and then you could change them. So
Yeah.
like if you were under it, and like, the guy who sat across from me, he was a high green, which was involve me. And I walk over one day and he's got red on the top. I'm like, rough day? He goes, yep. So he was in a like, I got to get this done mode. And
Right.
it helped communicate to people where they were operating at that moment.
Yeah.
And over
I
time,
love that use. I've never heard that actually, to put these in, like stack them on your desk as a sign. That's
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, and those of us went through the program. We go, oh, okay, yep, he's a D. It's like, just give him the details and let him move
Ah,
on, 'cause
yes.
that's what he
Yeah.
needs. But then this guy needs super details.
Yes.
He's the finance guy. He wants details.
How
So
interesting.
it helps. It helps with sales when you recognize that. And Tony Alessandra had a great program that he did where he would talk about how you could recognize that very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that you said that. This to me kind of transitions our discussion a little bit to leadership. And when we were talking backstage, you actually said you gave some advice that was given to you about two roles that you never want to see coming in hot. So can you share that story with our audience?
Yeah, well, when I was at Office Depot, now we had 500 people in the IT department. My when I got hired there, director or the VP told me, he goes, do not ever run here. He goes, because the two scariest things here are if we see security running or we see IT running. So he actually taught me how to walk quickly, but make it look like it was a casual stroll.
Yeah. So how does that look when your clients are depending on you in a moment of crisis? What does that virtual game face look like in your business?
You've got to show concern, empathy, but also this quiet confidence like it looks bad now, but we're going to be okay. We're going to fix this, even if you're not sure how. And there are times, honestly, where you're like, I don't know. I mean, the problem I was up till 4 a.m. last morning. I don't know how we're going to fix it. And now I've been with the client, like we're saying, okay, here's the next step. Here's the next step. Here's the next step. And we've told her, like, if this doesn't do it, we're going to nuke the machine and completely rebuild it because
Yeah.
that's where we're at in this process because it doesn't look like repairing is going to fix it. So we're going to have now it's a software rebuild. It's not a hardware rebuild.
Yeah. I'm curious, do you think that in a sense is helping to lead that client more calmly? Because it sounds I'm just imagining myself in that position. If someone had said, "Okay, worst case scenario is we nuke the machine and we move on, but this is what we're going to do until we make that final call." Like that would bring me a lot of comfort to just know at the end of this there's going to be a resolution. Might not be the one I like, but there's a resolution.
Yeah, and I think it does. It's there. There have been studies about queuing in Great Britain and about is it best to have people line up in individual or do a centralized line and then go to the open cash register. And it's actually slower to do the central line from a pure time standpoint, but people perceive it as less time. They
It's
perceive it that
interesting.
way because it feels fair.
Mhm.
It feels fair. I'm in the queue. I'm in the process. So now I've got more tolerance for the seconds clicking away than if, well, wait, why did he get taken care of when I've been in line longer? Because I got
Yeah.
behind the guy who's got 50 items and she's got three. So there's a lot of psychology that goes into that. And it's this concept of I'm in the process. So I feel comfortable because I've got a plan. And like you said, I may not like where it looks like it may go, but at least I know where we're going.
Yeah. And how do you personally stay calm when everything is on fire?
I worked as a lifeguard one summer. And if you don't do your job as a lifeguard, somebody could die.
Yeah.
So I keep it helps me keep things in perspective.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say I'm stress free, but I keep things in perspective. And I remember I was doing something early in my career, and the guy and my boss looks at me, he goes, Matt, no one's going to die. It's going to be okay. And I was like, yeah, you're right. No one's going to die. I'm not supporting airplanes or trains or automation in cars. Yes, there could be significant consequences, but no one's going to die. So we can get through this. And that helps me keep in perspective, but also my experience, which that's something you only get with experience, is this experience of like I've been through situations that looked really bad and we figured it out. So I know we're going to figure it out,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and I know the resources I've got and I know what the ultimate outcome could be, but I know we're going to figure it out. And I just have to effectively communicate that to my business owner who's in the stress moment, worried about meeting their client needs.
I love that. Sounds like you're a powerful guide in that process.
I try.
Yeah.
I do
Well,
I do the best I can.
yes, absolutely. Well, I want to talk a little bit and be very mindful of your time. So, in the last kind of final segments, but I want to talk about where IT Fusion is headed over the next 3 to 5 years. You had mentioned specifically you're moving more so into cybersecurity and risk management. But what are your goals for scaling and growing this to that side of the business?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to say we're gonna grow 40%. That was a very stressful year. Growing 40%
I can
is
only
is
imagine.
is stressful, and we really didn't add team members, but well, we did because we were having trouble with one position filling it, and it took us a while to find the right person, and so that added to the stress. If we'd found him sooner, he'd be further along and we'd be in a slightly better place just because of his expertise. But he's coming along really well. So I think where we see this going is, um, my focus this year is on profitability. When I set my goals with my CEO accountability group, they're like, well, where do you want the revenue? And I'm like, look, if I get 2 or 3% revenue growth and double my profits, I'll be really happy. And the leader, the facilitator was like, you could do better than that. I'm like, my focus this year is not as much on new business. It's on driving profit because top line revenue is show.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, okay, we're $1 million business. We hit $1 million last year for the first time. Awesome. And then I look at the profits. I'm like, yeah, but I want to be at 25%, net. And we're not
Yeah.
there yet. So how do we
Yeah.
get there? And can I get there with our existing clients? Can I get there with our existing tools? Can we operate more efficiently? And then what do I need to add revenue wise to get there? So that's really my goal this year, more so than top line growth. My other goal is marketing. Our marketing program right now is referrals. That's our marketing program. So I've got to focus on generating more inbound marketing, more predictable market lead flow than we've had historically.
Yeah.
Referrals are great. They're not predictable.
Yes. I
Yeah.
definitely understand that challenge.
Yeah. So
If
so
you could
that my goal, our ultimate goal is to, have this to be a sellable asset. Um, running $5 million a year with 20% EBITDA plus, which is doable.
yes. Well, yeah, given the challenges and like you said, the constant evolution of everything that's happening on a daily basis, and I was surprised when you said, that really the focus is on small businesses. That makes sense the way that you presented that. So I appreciate you sharing that. But yeah, it sounds like there's going to be a lot more need, and how do you prepare for that?
Yeah, absolutely. There is.
Yeah. If you could eliminate, if I gave you a magic wand and you could eliminate one challenge standing in your way to becoming more profitable, what disappears for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's some people call it pumpkin planting, some people call it long tailing. We have some clients who've been loyal clients. Their plans, just because of the way we do our pricing, they're not in line with current pricing. So if I could eliminate that long tail, it would raise my profitability. So we always look at clients on a not just a revenue, but on a profitability stand. And the
Mhm.
first time I did that, there were some clients I thought, oh, I'm getting great revenue off them. And yeah, I was getting great revenue. I was getting really bad margin.
Yeah.
And there were smaller clients who was getting more or equivalent margin. You know, I'm at we're at the start of where a lot of companies fall apart in our industry. We're at the start of that positioning. So I'm talking to companies that are larger, trying to make sure that we're positioned to be one of those that gets through this valley of death that they call it. And when I talk to people who've gotten through it, I'm like, what's different about your business? And the consistent answer I get is everything. Everything. Your team looks different. Your customers look different. The way you operate looks different. The software you use may look different. But even if the software is the same, you're using it differently.
Yeah.
So everything, they're like, everything is different. And I'm like, okay. So that's why I'm in, two accountability groups, one for CEOs in my space and one for CEOs across industry. Because I just want to learn as much as I can from companies that have been through these challenges, have been through these periods that are larger than I am, and try to just learn what I can from other people's missteps as much as I can.
Yeah. Matt, I want to acknowledge just the thinker that you are. You are very growth minded. I love having conversations like this. And I love that you are putting yourselves in an environment where you can be learning a couple of steps down the road.
Yeah.
Not that doesn't, that doesn't ever prevent us from going through failures on our own, but it certainly shortens the curve. So I just want to acknowledge you
Thank
for
you.
for doing that. Final question for you, and this is kind of a hypothetical, and I always like to end here. I want you to imagine this. So I want you to imagine you have created that $5 million asset company
Right.
that you could sell at a 20% margin. You're giving that to someone or that opportunity to someone else. You've accomplished the goals that you want by doing so with your family and everything that you can imagine, from a personal perspective, done, checked off the list.
Mhm.
However, we don't have any record of those wins, losses, the journey. But you do get to leave three pieces of advice for someone else to
Okay.
consider who might be stepping into those shoes. So what would your three, words of wisdom be for any business owner stepping in?
Yeah. One is don't be afraid to think deeply. Um, the book I'm working on right now is all about tearing down well-known paradigms and thinking deeper about them. So it's on work-life balance, and I believe work-life balance is fundamentally flawed as a concept, not the goal, but the concept, the framework. And so I've thought a lot deeply about that. And I've always been, I would say, a deep thinker. And so don't be afraid of that. That thinking time is really important. The second thing I would say is be vulnerable. And vulnerable isn't wallowing in your mistakes. It's saying, hey, yeah, I messed that up. Or, oh, Kimberly, I never thought of it that way. Tell me more about what you're thinking because I can get great value in that. I get more value sometimes in hearing how people think than what they think. I really love that. So I would say those are two things. And the third thing is surround yourself with people who think at a higher level than you do, who have been there, and learn everything you can from them. But don't lose who but while you're doing that, you have to be authentic to you. So, the world doesn't need another Kimberly. They don't need another Matt. They need you to be you as fully realized as you're going to become so that we can make a difference in whatever that purpose in your life is. What's your significance? What's the thing that you do that brings goodness to the world that is unique to you and that's positive and uplifts people and brings people together rather than divides them?
I love that. Love that. Thank you for sharing those lessons. Thank you for everything that you shared. I want to make sure that any business owner that is listening to this, we will link Matt's and IT Fusion's contact information in the notes below. It sounds like to me that it is easy to get started with a simple audit. So please feel free to reach out to Matt.
Yeah, well, I would say if you tell me that you saw it on this show, we will waive the fee for the assessment. So,
Thank you for that.
yeah, parting words. As a business owner, your job is to manage risk, and you do that in a number of ways. And just make sure that you're looking at your entire risk portfolio, and that includes the things that Kimberly does because she's managing risk in a different way. I think a lot of us are managing risk, helping uncover those things that are blocking you. From what I understand, those things that are blocking you from getting the business to where you want to go. So don't be afraid to reach out and learn and get vulnerable with people and say, yeah, I'm really struggling with this. It's not a woe is me. It's I'm struggling with this and I need some help. And
Yeah.
there's great strength in that. That is not a sign of weakness. That is a sign of great internal fortitude.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that that is a barrier that anybody that's working to, like you said, and thank you for acknowledging. I do think that some of what we do is risk management, but yeah, getting effectively communicating that's there's no shame in admitting that we need some support. Everyone needs some support.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks, Matt. Thanks for being here. We appreciate you.
Glad to be here.
All right. See ya.